Hello and welcome to Remember, the show about histories, mysteries, and the Emperor of America.
I thought we were a democracy or a republic. How can we have an emperor?
You'll see. It's a good one. Oh, welcome. Episode 2. You thought we would just be here for one.
You thought we would do it one time and then give up.
Doubters.
But here we are.
Timothy! No, Thomas. Thomas was the doubter.
Oh, I was like, Timothy, sure, just a random, but you were making a biblical reference. Got it.
I was trying
yes.
to.
Thomas was the doubter. Yes, he's the one who needed to feel the holes in Jesus' hands for himself.
Strong start from the guy who did the research for this episode, but it'll be okay.
I don't think you're doing a Bible episode, though, right? So it's okay.
We start way back in this one.
Oh, boy. It's like a me episode then. It's like, I'm going to talk about this, but first we need to go back 3,000 years to something completely unrelated.
Do we, though? Can we not just breeze over that? Context only goes so far before I'm changing channel. You know, I'm going to set the scene for you, Paula.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm ready.
It was a cold evening as the rain blew in from the San Francisco Bay. And on Thursday, January 8th, 1880, Joshua Abraham Norton, the first and final Emperor of America, as he headed out to a debate at the Academy of Natural Sciences, lay dead at the corner of California and DuPont. Days later, on Sunday the 11th, on page 8 of the Chronicle, the headline, Le Roi est mort, the king is dead, ran covering his funeral. Reading on the reeking pavement in the darkness of a moonless night, under the dripping rain and surrounded by a hastily gathering crowd of wandering strangers, Norton I, by the grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, departed this life.
Who is this person? One, that is an incredibly dramatic opening, and I feel like I need to rewrite every opening to every episode I ever host now, frankly. 2, I am an American and have never heard of us having an emperor.
It's the only true form of democracy. One guy making the rules.
That's right.
And everyone else agrees to go along with it, or they die. He wasn't that kind of emperor.
Or they die. That's a dictator. I think there is a difference between emperor and dictator.
I'm from a monarchy. Life's different here.
Your monarchy is not a dictatorship. They can't actually really do anything other than, like, make public addresses, right? I mean...
I'm not a fan of them. Let's be real. Let's get that out. Let's get that out there in the open. So this opening, I'm sure, leaves you, Paula, and everyone else, perhaps with a few more questions than answers. But yes. Emperor Norton the first and last was far more than just how he was remembered. Immortalised by Mark Twain in Huckleberry Finn as the character The King. Really? Twain knew him while he worked as a journalist. And in Robert Louis Stevenson's novel The Wrecker, Norton appears as himself. But he was real. He was an emperor of sorts, and his life lies somewhere just between the fact and folklore surrounding it.
So what I'm realizing here is that in every episode we do, Mark Twain has to be a part of it somehow.
Mark Twain got about.
Mark Twain knew William Gillette from episode 1, and now Mark Twain knows Emperor Norton, not to be confused with the product that will protect your computer from viruses.
Is this podcast secretly about Mark Twain? Are we going to change the name to Twaining Around? No, it's not.
Twain betwainst where the twain shall never meet. The two twain. Look, we're gonna workshop the new title.
That's a good. I like where your mind's going with it.
Thank you.
Betwixt and between.
With Matthew Jude and Paula Deming.
Just Matthew. I think with that strong of a theming of, I can probably go it alone.
You don't even need me. All right, great. Well, have at it. I'll just hang out here and not say anything else for the rest of the episode then.
Paula, unlike how you do these episodes, I've said this sentence next. Cutting his upbringing short.
I like that at this point I've only hosted one and we're already making jokes about my style of writing, which is verbose, I'll say it.
Look, I've known you for a long time, Paula, and I've done other podcasts with you. I know what's going on. what can be said for sure is that Joshua Abraham Norton was born most likely on February 4th, 1818 to John and Sarah Norton in the Kentish town just north of Camden, a place where I myself have spent many a strange night struggling with my own self-inflicted delusions. But that's a story for a different time. Kentish town. Great place.
So wait, the Emperor of America was British.
Of course, you'd have to be, right? Let's be honest.
Classic colonizer behavior.
We just do it best. His family, actually, you'll like this, his family voyaged out, as was the style at the time, to South Africa to make money doing what the British did in the 1800s anywhere they could do it.
I like that we were on the same page on the colonizer jokes.
His dad made a bunch of money, but eventually, and fairly tragically, Joshua became the sole heir to the inheritance. And this is from a relatively large family. Now, this is said to have been around $40,000, which is like 1.5 million in today's money. Though in reality, there's no way to know how much of that he had in early February 1846, when Joshua boarded the Sunbeam. That couldn't possibly sink.
Not with a name like that. Not with a bright positivity of a name like Sunbeam.
Not the Sunbeam. That was full of pandas.
I would say it's full of loaves of bread. Because I feel like Sunbeam is the brand. It's like a bakery brand for bread here. I don't know. Keep going.
It was going from Liverpool bound for Boston, and after another boat, he arrived in San Francisco in March 1849. Now, no one knows what he did for those 3 years between Boston and San Francisco, but I like to think that he spent that time looking for the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, which is a story we covered a long time ago on a different show.
Called Death by Monsters. You can still listen to it.
It's still there. I'm still paying the bloody fees to have Libsyn host it. Joshua straight away set up the Joshua Norton and Company. He was on his own. Liar. Out the gate. But that's fine.
Sometimes when you've been alone a long time, though, you kind of make up that you have friends so that you can pretend like you're not alone. So
it's like when I RSVP for 2 people.
It's just like it's like going through life in a really like positive, optimistic outlook. By the time this event happens, I might have another person to bring with me.
I just want 2 meals at the event.
Both the chicken and the fish.
And an extra Negroni. Paula, I'm drinking Negronis now, just so you know. I like them.
Gross. I'll say it. Gross. I don't like Campari.
I went to an event recently, and the only thing they were selling was serving. They weren't selling them. That's why I got into trouble. They were serving was Negronis, and I was like, that is a bold choice, but I was very happy about it. He set up this Joshua Norton and Company, a real estate and importing concern, and it makes a bunch of money, something like, as it's been speculated, and I'll say this now, a lot about Joshua Norton's life is speculation, and I went to quite a few different places for research, and I think I found a bit of a middle line between a few of these things.
Okay.
And there was one place that was very pro-Norton, who was saying it wasn't that much money, and it wasn't this, and I was very happy with the research I did for this, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
Anyway, the company makes a speculated $250,000 in the first 3 years, which is about $8.5 million in future today bucks. And to all intents and purposes, he became a socialite. He's popular, charismatic, went to the right clubs and parties, knew the right people. He became a member of the Occidental Lodge, number 22 of the Freemasons.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait for our next episode that I have already researched, everyone, because there's actually a lot in common, I think, here with our people.
Live in the moment.
I'm sorry, I'm going to live in this moment, in the moment of this episode.
Does that mean that Joshua Norton knew the true whereabouts of the original Shakespeare plays buried on Oak Island calendar in a vat of mercury by the Rosicrucians to hide Shakespeare's true identity, proving his authorship of the plays? It doesn't. But why rule it out?
Why?
Paula!
It's boring to rule that kind of thing out. Let's not debunk it. Let's just believe it.
Just please, if I can give any advice to people out there, just believe. It's more fun.
It's a lot more fun.
So as can happen to anyone, Joshua gets and takes some bad advice. In late 1852, a famine in China creates this massive shortage of rice, driving prices in places like San Francisco, which has a very high Chinese population, up by 900%. This gave Joshua the option to corner the market by buying a shipload of rice for $25,000 at 12.5 cents a pound coming from Peru, as opposed to 36 cents it was selling for. This would mean that he could triple his money. But the day after he signed on the dotted line, and then over and over again after that, more boats full of rice showed up from Peru. The price plummeted to 3 cents a pound and the money was lost. But Norton wasn't licked. He went to try and void his contract as he's been, as he saw it, purposely misled.
Yeah, like someone was like, oh, one boat's coming in from Peru and you can get it. But what really was happening was like a whole boatload of boats were coming from Peru.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks.
It does, because it kind of ruins him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Because was he able to fight the contract?
No. He believes he's been purposely misled. The whole thing gets lost in masses of expensive court cases for years, and ultimately he loses the case. He tried to get back on his feet by running for San Francisco tax collector in May 1855. Then again, he announced that he was running for Congress in August 1858, all of which just never materializes. This sends Norton into somewhat of a tailspin, a reclusion, and most probably, although speculatory, a deep depression. He falls off the map almost entirely, other than the occasional sighting here and there. But in July 1859, something slightly strange appears in the San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin newspaper. An ad had been taken out, addressed to the citizens of the Union, which outlined a national crisis was afoot. Then another ad, or more of a proclamation this time, was printed 2 months later on September 17th, 1859. At the peremptory request of a large majority of the citizens of these United States, I, Joshua Norton, formerly of Algoa Bay, Cape of Good Hope, and now for the last 9 years and 10 months past of San Francisco, California, declare and proclaim myself Emperor of these U.S. I'm going to assume it's these United States, but...
I'm assuming that's what U.S., maybe that's to save money. Is he paying by the word?
I think it's to save on typeface. Yeah, he's paying by the letter, isn't he?
So he's like, I've run out now. Just put these two in.
But then again, he also has some kind of... And in virtue of the authority thereby in me vested, do hereby order and direct the representatives of the different states of the Union to assemble in Music Hall of this city on the first day of February next, then and there to make such alterations in the existing laws of the Union as may ameliorate the evils under which this country is labouring, and thereby cause confidence to exist, both at home and abroad, in our stability and integrity. Signed, Norton I, Emperor of the United States. Though he also adds in 1863, when Napoleon III invaded Mexico, Protector of Mexico. And just like that, Emperor Norton I was born, and he was up and running with things that needed to change.
But you can see why he needed to abbreviate United States. It's like when you're writing a tweet and you're just 6 characters over and you're like, okay, where can I replace the word and with an ampersand? And you're trying to just abbreviate just the barest things. This is, I feel like, what he was doing there. He's like, okay, I just need to take out 2 words. I'll just make United States, US in this one spot.
I don't need any more commas in this. I'll take those out, but I definitely need to use the word hitherto.
And ameliorate. Okay, so wait. So he's published this, and now he's... This is the same Norton, but he's now titled himself Emperor.
Or God told him. I mean, either of those.
Told him.
I feel as though God could have told him to be Emperor. That's what I feel would happen to me. I feel like I think God could speak to me and tell me that I need to rule my own nation. Maybe? Am I that person? Am I the person who's going to rule? It's not me saying this, Paula. I have no desire to lead the common man.
Look, when a burning bush tells you that you need to be the first emperor of the United States and protector of Mexico, you say yes.
If God is going to ask me to lead the huddled masses, because I'm the only one that can do it, then yeah, I'm gonna say no to God.
When the
Yeah,
Statue
right,
of
Paula, great
Liberty
idea.
appears in a dream and tells you that even though you're a virgin, you have become the parent of an entire country.
Have you just called me a virgin?
No, I didn't call you a virgin. Has the Statue of Liberty appeared to you in a dream?
Yeah, Statue of Liberty got Anne Hathaway's voice and body. She won an Oscar, well deserved. I was like, she won an Oscar for Les Mis. Then I watched it and I went, yep. So he's got a bunch of things he wants to get done. First, he calls for the abolition of Congress, which he followed up when that didn't happen with a decree for the army to forcibly clear the halls of Congress, though also that unfortunately didn't go through. He then proclaimed the dissolution of the two-party system and, of course, for the Republic of the United States itself to be dissolved in favour of a temporary monarchy. Just temporary.
It's never just temporary, though, is
Look,
it?
just for now. Let me rule everything and I'll give up that absolute power. Absolutely, I will.
Yeah, right.
That's the phrase, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolute power is given back absolutely. That's
No
yeah.
question. Just not for the foreseeable, not until after lunch. And then it's too late to do anything, really. So it's going to have to be tomorrow at that point.
It's going to have to be tomorrow because, yeah, it's
And
office hours.
The weekend's off. The weekend's off, obviously, because I'm golfing.
And then there's a bank holiday.
That's awkward. New Year's not a good time to change.
No,
And Chinese New Year's
Yeah.
after that. And no one wants a big change near Valentine's Day. You can't hold that.
No.
The spring is the time of rebirth.
Really, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But also,
But then it's
taxes.
summer vacation.
You can't do it over summer vacation
no,
because you
'cause
don't want
people are
people to
gone.
come back. Exactly. And then it's basically Christmas again, isn't it?
Yep, there you
So, look, I know what you're thinking. Many people were thinking that Norton had gone off the deep end during his seclusion and just snapped into delusion. It could happen to anyone. You make a couple of bad investments. But it seems that perhaps, at least according to his biographer, William Drury, that this was actually a slow decline that had already manifested before he made it California way. Which makes some sense. He'd been uprooted as a child to South Africa, where he'd been at odds with his father, alone and isolated in a family that kept on dying. He was their sole heir, but not the youngest of his siblings. And frankly, while he was obviously intelligent and business-minded, he had suffered some real incalculable losses in his life. Then to fall into financial ruin, it could have been, if I were to speculate, just a little bit too much to bear.
Yeah, maybe that's like the breaking point.
I think so. But instead of wanting to take over the world, he really seemed set on changing the world for the better for the common man. In 1859, the travel documentarian Timothy Speed Livick puts it this way. Some say he'd gone mad, others say he'd gone wise. His platform, other than an upturned milk crate, box, was deeply anti-corruption and anti-fraud. He was fundamentally in favour of the fair treatment and enhanced legal protections of immigrants and minorities. He staunchly demanded black folk be allowed to ride public streetcars and attend public schools. And he had probably been taught quite the opposite in colonial South Africa. He wanted Chinese people to be able to testify in court, saying that the eyes of the emperor will always be upon anyone who shall counsel any outrage or wrong on the Chinese. He proclaimed, when talking about Native Americans, that all Indian agents and other parties connected with frauds against the Indian tribes were to be publicly punished before as many Indian chiefs as could be assembled together, which I thought was quite good. And he refused to follow any one denomination and instead, as a humanist, attended all of them, but so he could warn them against the dangers of Puritanism and
Sectarianism?
Yeah, I can't say that one.
That's all right. So, this is interesting. So he just went to like every church and was like, don't get too up your own butt.
Not too much. Next you'll be saying you're the emperor. That's me.
It's so funny. He's like, don't think that you're the only right one because I'm the only right one. It's kind of.
I don't think that's the energy he was coming in with. I really feel like he was.
Bit.
He also prohibited the enforcement of state Sunday laws, which discriminated against the Germans and the Jews. I like him. He supported women's rights, Paula, the right to vote, and believed in the common right to fair taxes and basic services, including well-maintained streets, streetcars, ferries, and trains.
I mean, it's easy to be supportive of all people if you aren't trying to get reelected, I guess. So there you go. That's one upside of being an emperor.
It's that second term energy, right? You know?
He's like, whatever. You can't vote me out anyway because I'm the God-placed emperor here.
I'm the God King.
I'm the God King. I mean,
That's
it is.
not how he was...
love that he is publicly stating all of these incredibly progressive things, wanting, like equal rights for everyone, it sounds like.
It's the 1850s.
Yeah.
Slavery, literally, the last slave ship came into port in the 1850s in America.
I mean, yeah, it's right before, Civil War situation.
I like it.
But, I don't know. Okay, call me a negative Nelly, I suppose. But if he was actually in power, would he have acted on any of these things?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, really do.
It's all good ideas. I like if his heart feels like it's in the right place. He's just, it's just bizarre though, right?
I just think it's the only thing that makes sense anymore. Look, this one's a bit more folklore-y, but one of his proclamations is meant to have been, though this is what a lot of people say about him, is after he had a proclamation that was, whoever after due and proper warning shall be heard to utter the abominable word Frisco, which is no linguistic or other warrant, shall be deemed guilty of a high misdemeanor and shall pay into the imperial treasury a penalty of the sum of $25. Hated the phrase Frisco, which is the only thing that's endured in San Francisco from what I understand. They still don't like it.
What is that? What is the phrase Frisco? Just
instead of San Francisco, just
call
saying
it Frisco. Right.
Hates it. That's why you have to
That's
say
why I have
San
to say
Fran.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But also, he was a bit of a visionary in some ways. Some people said that he was the person who first said that there should be a League of Nations. There's no proof of that at all. But he was certainly the person who was one of the first people who had the idea for there to be a Bay Bridge linking Oakland and San Francisco, which, in hindsight, just makes sense.
I mean, good idea. And it happened. So look, he actually was able to enact one of his planks in his platform. That's what they're called,
Manifest through the will of God, you mean? Yeah, I think so. It's just strange that while he was a socialite in many ways, learned and popular, he lived as a pauper at this 50-cent a day Eureka lodgings, a 3-story boarding house on Commercial Street, which often had to be paid by some of his old friends in the Masons. This was a 9-by-6 foot room, sparsely furnished with rickety sagging couch, a night table and a wash basin. And though he wore regimental garb, sometimes Union, sometimes Confederate, always hand-me-downs with a big worn-out walking stick, a sword and a beaver hat with an ostrich plume adorned when possible. But these were all gifted to him, and he always had apparently a day-old carnation that some florist would give to him out of sympathy.
How very Doctor Who wilted celery stick of him.
He definitely looked not dislike a Time Lord, I have to assume.
So he goes from being very rich to seemingly very poor, and I'm wondering if I'm thinking again about this breaking point. If he's deluding himself into being someone very important, very opulent, because he can't face the reality of his current situation. And it sounds like everyone is rather than scorning him or being well, he fell from grace, forget him. They all seem to still be on his side. Everyone seems to be humoring him. Is that true?
It kind of feels like he's not doing any harm and he means well and he's a nice guy and charismatic and people like him. This is the thing. Just because people weren't exactly doing his bidding, he was liked by many and tolerated by most. And he was loved as a mascot by others. And he did use this to his advantage by printing his own money. Now, I don't advise you do this, but people kind of just let him get away with it. These were his own bills between 50 cents and $10 that at the time some restaurants would even honor, knowing that he was essentially going to help out the emperor.
Would they honor them from anyone or just from him?
I believe that sometimes they would honor them from other people, but I imagine they probably were honoured when he paid.
This is so fascinating.
And if you happen to find a Norton dollar, they are worth, at the very least, $10,000 now.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah,
That's
they're
crazy.
really valuable. It makes me so happy. They are, if you find a real Norton dollar, they are actually worth money now.
Wow.
He was loved by a lot of people. At times, someone would get him a new uniforms and stuff, and he was good for business because he was basically part of the San Francisco tourist trade. Shops sometimes sold little figurines of him. Some would advertise that they were the official bakery or restaurant and service to the Emperor of the United States. Though there's one time that this special officer, Armand Barbier, was kind of like a cop, essentially, but he was a private citizen that worked for a group that the police chief paid. So kind of like a community officer in the UK.
Like a neighborhood watch kind of sort of thing?
Yeah, but with I imagine with a stick that you'd beat people with.
Well, it is America.
It is America. But he arrested Norton for vagrancy and lunacy, which, let me tell you, the people of San Francisco were not happy about. The bulletin printed, "In what can only be described as the most dastardly of errors, Joshua A. Norton was arrested today. He's being held on the ludicrous charge of lunacy," I like what they did there, "known and loved by all true San Franciscans as Emperor Norton. This kindly monarch of Montgomery Street is less a lunatic than those who have engineered these trumped-up charges. As they will learn, His Majesty's loyal subjects are fully apprised of this outrage." And the Daily Alta newspaper wrote, "Norton was in this day a respectable merchant, and since he has worn the imperial purple, he shed no blood, robbed nobody, and despoiled the country of no one, which is more than can be said of any of his followers in that line."
This is so heartwarming. Like, I feel so, like, it's so cute. I don't know. I really love that, like, some stupid fake pig cop arrests this guy. And then everyone, like the newspapers are printing like, "How dare you? We love him. What? He did nothing wrong. He's great for our city." I just love how much everyone seems to like love this guy who's like bonkers.
This officer, though, you just said it, though. This officer did nothing really wrong. He was probably...
He might have been in that moment being a bit of a nuisance, vagrant. Maybe he was like shouting or harassing people in that moment if he's not quite all there in reality, you know, that maybe there was something going on.
For a popular context to this, he's essentially Lil Sebastian from Parks and Rec. To most people, he's just a horse, right? But for the people of that community, he's Lil Sebastian. He's like the mascot. People love him. This all led to Police Chief Patrick Crawley to not only release, but he apologises to Norton. And Norton then went on to issue an imperial pardon for Armand Barbier. And then from that day on, it's said, it wasn't unusual for police officers to salute the emperor when they passed him in the street.
I love this. I love this so much. It's like Bat Kid, which is another San Francisco kind of story about like do you know this story, Matthew?
I don't.
It's so Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is like kids with terminal or very difficult illnesses. They get like a wish, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation will go and do whatever, you know, whatever the kid wishes for. And this kid wished to be Batman, so they let him be Batman for a day. They like dress him up as Batman, and he goes around the city. Everyone in San Francisco is like treating him like he's Batman for the day. And it kind of feels like that a little bit.
I feel like there is a little bit of that. There's people are humoring him because he's not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
And he obviously seems to mean well. And I think everybody kind of picks up on the fact that he means well.
Yeah.
Such was the charisma of him and the love of Norton that during an anti-Chinese riot that was kicking off in the streets, Norton turns up, stood between the Chinese and the rioters, where he simply calmly recited the Lord's Prayer over and over again until the violence quelled and the people dispersed. And he'd give children who had done him a good deed, or he seemed that he thought they were like down on their luck and needed a smile, the title of King or Queen for the Day. And it's where it's believed that the phrase King for a Day comes from.
Really?
I just like him.
I like him too. Oh my gosh.
As a little postscript here, and according to the Emperor Norton Trust, who, without them, I wouldn't have been able to make this episode. They're an absolute wealth of knowledge and the resources on the topic. In 1934, as part of the San Francisco's Great Cemetery eviction, Emperor Norton's remains were moved from his original resting place in the city's Masonic Cemetery, which I assume one of his Mason's friends probably paid for.
Yeah.
His remains were moved to Woodlawn Cemetery in Colma, a few miles to the south of San Francisco, which we absolutely need to go to, by the way.
Okay.
A reburial ceremony included full civic and military honours and the placement of a new headstone, which remains at the emperor's grave. The story is that thousands of people turned up for this, but really it was probably 100 to 200 people. But they kind of did right by him, I feel like.
I feel emotional. I feel like it's so lovely. It really is. I can't believe I've never heard of him before.
I think he just meant well, right? His grave is this pilgrimage site, one that holds special place of honour for a number of groups, including, of course, the Ancient and Honourable Order of E Campus Vitus, the Discordians, and members of the Cacophony Society, who all claim him as a patron saint. And I'll say that he ruled with kindness and fairness that is absent from those who normally deem to seek power.
Yeah.
He was a common man with grand plans for a better world. And if America had only one emperor, then my vote would have gone to Norton I, Emperor of America and Protector of Mexico.
I'm going to make another Doctor Who reference, and this is going to mean nothing to you probably, Matthew, but it's like the Sundarans are so...
Yeah, the Sundarans.
Yeah. They're like, think they can like rule everything and they want to like win in all the wars. They're kind of adorably cute about their belief in themselves as like ultimate rulers. And there's something like that about like the original like proclamations that Norton made. I am now emperor. Go away, Congress. Oh, Congress didn't listen? Okay, well the military's gonna come get you. Oh, that didn't happen? All right, well, like, I don't know.
I'll do it myself then.
Cute. This is such a fascinating topic. That's made me feel really good. It's made me kind of like feel good about humanity.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you want to feel good about humanity, then you can comment and like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. I said it. It's YouTube.
Thank you so much for watching this video here on YouTube. If you are interested in this in just audio podcast form, it also exists like that, and you can find it on whatever your podcatcher of choice is. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, leave us a comment to let us know what you think. And Matthew, thank you so much for bringing this topic to my attention and to everyone else's attention. I didn't know about it before, so...
I just think I should be God King.
We'll talk about it.